In terms of introduction to Scott, I've known Scott for almost 4 years now. Scott, it's been a while since we got to know each other. As Scott likes to say, he's was our guinea pig at Entitle in terms of being the first person to get on and be a customer of our live platform. Almost a first, not quite. But since then, he's done a lot. And the story that he has to share with you today in terms of continuing the story of growth is actually fascinating. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Scott, and I'll let you take it away from here. Go ahead, Scott.
All right, very good, Vivek, and thanks for being here today. Thank you for hosting us. It's been another great session. Really learned a lot from Dave, Adrian, and just now Hans. So a lot that we can apply to our business. Vivek asked me to spend a little bit of time talking about what we're doing at Peerless Pump to manage our channels and leverage our installed base information as we grow our aftermarket business. So that's the goal, is just to provide some lessons learned about our 4-year journey with Vivek and Entitle, and trying to grow our aftermarket business largely through channels. This slide here is a view of New York City during the Freedom Tower build. One of the things about Peerless that's interesting is that we've got fire pumps in the 7 tallest buildings in the world, and we'll talk a little bit more about that installed base. So a little bit about me. I've been in manufacturing my entire career, automotive, General Motors, recreational vehicle industry with a couple of companies, and now industrial equipment, a variety of jobs of increasing responsibility up to and now to include the aftermarket business for the last 5 years. The common thread through that journey I've been on is how to create value for your partners and customers. This was hammered home as I developed my ability to and the art of customer recovery during my years in the RV business, but driving beneficial outcomes for us as a manufacturer, our partners, distribution channel, and then ultimately the end user that just wants a quality product and something that enhances their lifestyle. So a little bit about Peerless. Peerless Pump Company is a subsidiary of Grundfos, a Danish pump company, largest pump company by volume, 19,000 employees worldwide. Peerless was spun off as a subsidiary in June of 2019. We're initially acquired by Grundfos in December of 2007. So recently, 18 months ago, recently spun off as our own performance unit under the Grundfos umbrella. Peerless was founded in California in the 20s, and you can see a large pump as big as those gentlemen there, 3 gentlemen there. And that's a pump from the 50s. Our installed base, we have records that go back into the 20s. And it's not uncommon for us to do service on a pump or physical asset that is 50 years old. We're headquartered in Indianapolis, Indiana, with a presence 5 facilities around the country. We've got 350 employees worldwide. 60% of what we sell is domestic to North America, and then 40% international business. So we are a global provider out of Indianapolis. Our key markets are UL/FM fire, so fire pumps that follow the UL and FM standards, and typically those are distributed wherever there is, and wherever that standards are accepted, generally follows U.S. foreign direct investment. So we have large businesses in the Middle East, Southeast Asia, South America, and that follows American companies or US-based companies. We also have, and that is a fire pump in the upper right-hand corner for those of you that don't know what a fire pump looks like. Typically it's red, and most people don't know where they are. So it's an interesting challenge from an installed base perspective sometimes. In the lower right-hand corner, you see a large vertical turbine pump that represents a lot of what goes into the water utility industry. And this is actually at a chiller plant at my alma mater, Purdue University, earlier this year as we did service on 5 different pumps there. We have had and developed a strong focus since 2016, 2017 on the service space and are actively investing despite COVID in 2019 and 2020 and this year as well. The products and markets that we serve, we are a make to order and engineer to order business. So we apply our hydraulics to meet customers' needs on a job-by-job basis and meet their mechanical needs. So those take on a lot of forms, a lot of colors, a lot of different metallurgies to meet the varied needs of pumping solutions. We serve 5 main markets: fire, commercial buildings, industrial with subset markets or submarkets of process industry, and obviously energy, and then water supply, which is municipal water, utility, and agriculture. We have 5 main product lines. Our engineered package system division in Houston that puts a pump in a skid package or house package. It's shown here that has everything, basically a plug-and-play pump system. So it's got all the electronics, electrical system, pump, valves, all those things. So really you bring water to it and power to it and you're ready to pump. Our horizontal split case line can be used in a number of different markets: fire pumps to general water boosting applications. Process pump division produces ANSI product and legacy Peerless Labor Tabor product is a brand name under the Peerless umbrella. Those pumps pump things that are not water, so sludge or acids or something of that nature. And then our vertical turbine business or pumps are obviously boosting pumps that are widely used around the world, and is a very strong market in the US for vertical turbine. We also have a digital business. So we have developed our first digital product called Fire Connect, which is a fire pump remote condition monitoring system. So Adrian talked a lot about Adrian sounds like he's been sitting in a lot of our conversations around our team that's developing that solution. So we're excited by that solution and looking forward to its proliferation and changing from a traditional service business to a more focused on outcomes for customers. Our distribution and go-to-market philosophy, it's important to understand that as we're on this journey with installed base. A lot of what is we've dealt with is dictated certainly by our market and our distribution, our channel. So you can see predominantly we sell through distribution or manufacturers reps, and those differ a little bit because of the nature of the installed base data that we can derive. Both of those channels sell all offerings, so it could be a pump, a part, or a service. They have access to our entire portfolio. We do a good amount of business as our large engineered to order projects, primarily in the fire and water utility space. These projects can be upwards of $10 million for a single project. And those, the nature of that sale, it's really important to get as close to the customer as you can, because the translation of data and the requirements placed on those projects is extensive. We have a separate team, the projects team that handles that type of business. And then on the aftermarket side, we have our authorized service provider network that typically was just a warranty and product support avenue. We've changed their focus and developed focus to also include proactive aftermarket sales, and we'll get into that here in a minute. And then we have a Peerless direct service sales channel. So we have a presence around the country in 5 different locations that we project service and service sales from. And so that is important to note as we get into some of our trials and tribulations around our installed base. So looking back to 2017, our Peerless Pump Service team was actually part of Grundfos Service North America. And at that time, we were focused on getting our growth ambitions off the ground with a new focus from Grundfos in total around service. So the easiest route to market is your direct channel. So we were looking for something to sell, and due to our large installed base, it was mutually agreed upon with consensus that the product and service that we would focus on was the Peerless product. So this starts our journey on installed base selling. With that focus in mind, Peerless has some electronic records, but we have a lot more files in a library in Indianapolis, 10 million records dating back to the 20s with our installed base. We've been through a series of different go-to-market strategies. So we've had direct sales offices in the 80s and 90s that in 10 to 15 cities. So we have a tremendous amount of information from those offices, along with just the almost 100-year company history. So we do have this program that's a 1990s based graphic user interface here. Some of you probably have sunsetted some of these legacy systems. We are working on that this year, actually. But this is a history going back into the mid-'80s of some of our jobs. So with that information, we're able to export an Excel spreadsheet to some of our sites, and one of those sites actually happened to be out in the Bay Area in San Francisco. Grinfos maintains and operates a service facility in Hayward. So I gave a list of about 50 end user targets to one of my colleagues, and he was excited. I often refer to this as the golden ticket moment. So I gave my colleague Sherazad the golden ticket to get into 50 different end user locations around the Bay Area, and he had a bigger smile than Charlie has right here. So that is kind of our eureka moment when it came to installed base selling. So armed with that, he and the sales team were able to get into an extremely large water utility provider, and also a large steel company that has multiple locations on the West Coast. This installed base selling effort led to everything that you would want from a service contact. So it led to spare parts, it led to service contract, it led to efficiency improvements on existing product, re-engineering. It also led to replacement of old Peerless product that needed to be sunsetted. And then it also led to conquest sales. So we had the full aftermarket experience, and we loved it. So we decided that the problem was we gave this information in one of our hotbed markets where distribution was lacking a little bit, where there was a lack of service focus from our distributors. And we also gave it to our hotshot sales guy too, the best salesman in the company. So we knew that just by giving the individual a list of information probably wasn't scalable. And so we needed a process to understand what was possible. And we also needed a tool to visualize and help us organize our installed base. That's when we began our journey with Entitle. This just represents our effort to develop the pump life cycle, the customer touch points over time. We documented that, and then we took a hard look in the mirror and said, what is working and what's not. We were great catchers at Peerless Pump, but we were not so much pitching all that well. When we would get a part to quote, we had over a 60% hit rate on those spare parts. So most of the service was done through distribution or by others, not aligned with our chain. And we wanted to change that view. While we do work with end users, the key to our growth would be making others more successful and going from a reactive service entity to a proactive service entity. It's important to take a look at our distribution, because herein lies that challenge. How do you grow your service business? When the term we use in Indianapolis a lot is, and this may not be totally politically correct, is our distributors in a lot of cases are fat, dumb, and happy. They've chiseled out good businesses. They all drive nicer cars than we do. And so how do you incentivize and make a distributor do something more than they're doing? Typically, we have the A or B plus player in most markets. 50% of our distributors operate, I would say only 50% of our distributors operate a service business beyond initial pump commissioning. Only 15% have a dedicated service sales team. We derive 71% of our aftermarket sales from roughly 35 distributors. So somewhere along the 80-20 principle, a majority of that revenue being parts versus service offering and value-added services. And we estimate that our network only captured about 18% of that potential aftermarket revenue at that time. So our solution was twofold in this regard. Develop our distributors to include a stronger aftermarket focus where mutually desired. Some people that we've approached just don't want to go after it, don't see, even though you can show them an installed base and a revenue they're likely missing out on, they took that parts business that they're getting almost as an annuity. So that's, we are focused to, if that's the case, then we come up with other options. And that other option in a lot of cases is to develop our authorized service partner network. Our ASP network, as we call it, can be distributors, and that's our preferred method, so we don't have channel conflict. But we have also signed up motor shops and electrical repair shops and other service providers that traditionally have not been in our network to drive our aftermarket. Obviously, our goals: improve connectivity to end users, fill geographic territories. We have had some holes where, for instance, in San Francisco, we had a very large gap in some of our markets. Improve customer satisfaction and drive aftermarket penetration to our installed base. So that solution has proved to be, those solutions have proved to be very positive. Along the way, we have what I call we've developed a dumpster full of good ideas, right? So good, well-intentioned plans and ideas that ultimately just get thrown in the wastebasket or you recycle them. So we piloted with success our initial download or upload of data into Entitle, and our visualization of that and insights was very positive. We had some initial early success with a couple distributors, but it wasn't sustained. And then we developed, we added, because everybody was so excited about the installed base data, we wanted to get it to all partners for all products. So we incorporated other Grundfos data into our Peerless pump set, which we then expanded all across the country and world, except for in Europe. And then we had an overwhelming data set that we couldn't manage, and there it was had a lot of problems with the data. So we also hoarded that installed base data. We didn't really share it. We thought it was a really good idea to keep it to ourselves because we wanted to drive our service sales numbers. And so that's it wasn't as intentional as it sounds now, but looking back on it, it probably wasn't. It definitely wasn't the best idea. The quest for perfect data. I put perfect data because perfect data is a fallacy. There's no perfect data, and you have to overcome that in your discussions internally and externally. Partner management through existing resources, so existing sales resources, led to a lack of focus. So we subcontract partner management just through the new sales side is not a recipe for success. And then what I call promises. So we heard a lot from our distributors and ASPs that, yeah, we're going to use this data and we want it, we got to have it, don't give it to anybody else. And then they did a little with it. So we've learned a good amount there. So that experience leads to valuable lessons in getting us on target now. So obviously now we believe in piloting certain subsets of data and then rolling it out in a manageable and correct scope. So we've got some new data that's coming on board that we have just uncovered through series of databases and our company chiseling its way out of our parent company. We found another data set. We're going to pilot that in a couple of different states for specific distributors, and then with one regional sales manager in our team. So that's an example of, and then we will scale from there. The entire organization we now know will benefit from that customer 360-degree view. We've shared this information with some non-ASP partners, and we found great benefit in connection to end users that 20 to 25 year distributor for us didn't know that they had in their territory. So we've got some quick wins there. As I mentioned earlier, the data is never going to be perfect, so don't think it ever is going to be. commit to working on it though. So we are now committed to working it. We have our point person for entitle and this, and our focus is that she works on that data a lot, and I also work on it with her. So dedicated resources expressly focused on the aftermarket partner success for using installed base. So now we manage our process. We don't subcontract it. We're directly involved. Do your homework and get absolute commitment. Follow up on a regular cadence. That cadence will drive accountability and that commitment. So we'll talk about what we mean by homework here in a second. Make it easy and attractive to use the data. So the ever improving, it was great when we started 4 years ago. It was light years ahead of what we had internally, but what Vivek and team have done with the user interface and the data that they can now, the data that they now transmit to us, and then there's a prescriptive nature of some of that data and estimation of end user needs is really important and creates a lot of value for the market. We're also dabbling in incentives, whether it's a multiplier discount or a sales incentive directly to that ASP or partner is something that we're targeting this year as well. And then regular and honest communication and conversation with your sales team internally and your partner network. We have learned this, that we have to be brutally honest, and it's better to say no than yes to somebody that you're not sure will use your data. So with that, we'll talk about kind of our success factors, our growth success factors. Our goal is to replicate this golden ticket experience that we had internally. So how do we do that, and how do we scale that, not only internally through our own direct service sales channel, but also through qualified partners. So one, we've learned to provide data to all sales and customer service personnel. This is not only internal to our organization, but also external to the distributor ASP that could benefit from it. So we've seen benefits all across organizations that we're working with to give them that 360-degree view. We're now regularly looking at territory reviews with regional service managers to evaluate, or sales managers, to evaluate partner networks and utilization of the installed base data. So we have that ongoing and active dialogue on a regular basis with our entire sales force. Apply qualification checklist to all potential targets. So initially, we didn't have a documented or a process by which we would give this data. Now we have this really profound checklist. Not so profound, but certainly it's come through some learning that we needed to have this type of tool. So one, we look at dedication to Peerless pumps. So is that distributor ASP truly flying the Peerless pump flag the highest? Or when you look at their website or walk into their facility, do they have another flag that's flying on the flagpole or plastered all across their sales office or throughout the inventory of their parts and service area? So we want to align ourselves with people that want to be aligned with us. They must have an aftermarket focus and plan. So a dedicated sales force gets extra credit in our mind, commitment to that shared plan. So they're going to meet with us and they're going to be held accountable to that. And then ongoing and active collaboration. One of the things that we've learned is to leverage our installed base data. We don't have a behavior-based distribution program yet, but we're moving toward that situation. So we look at, very simply put, level 1, 2, and 3. And so at level 1, there's really not much access to our installed base, although we will have a conversation from our sales team without the aftermarket team. These are folks that have either expressed limited or no interest in installed base, or don't have an avenue for us to work with. Level 2 would be after a collaboration package. They get an annual review from us and goal setting, targeted customer development list, and access to Peerless, our Peerless experts on the aftermarket side. While they don't get access to insights, or that we don't sit them on insights, we can take information from insights and give it to them. So we develop a 5 to 10 end user list of customers we want them to talk to during that period of time, whether it's 6 months or a year. and see what they can do with it. If they have success and come back to us and want more, then we may progress them into level 3, which is really a 360 view and full support from our team. So you get access to service sales managers, my team of sales individuals that can come alongside the ASP or distributor to help them sell more service. We teach them what the key points of selling repair service contracts, efficiency gains. They get everything that we know. We're obviously developed a shared plan and sales target. They get access to entitled insights, as we mentioned, and we're able to tailor information to meet their organization's needs. What we're finding is that a lot of companies, and it's good for us, are very professional. That our best entities, that our best ASPs are the most professional and the most focused. That may mean they have a different CRM, or they already have a CRM that they use. We're looking at ways to integrate our installed base information into their business process. So those dialogues have come a long way in the last year, and Vivek has been very helpful in this whole channel discussion and how his company can meet the individual needs of our distributors and ASPs. So with that, I think we might have a minute for questions. Vivek, back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Scott, thank you very much for that. We do have a minute for question. And in fact, there's one that came in through the Q&A channel here. This is from Kurt Hauer, who basically has asked a question that's typically on most people's mind, which is data collection, how to make it successful when you're working through partners, right? Do you convince the partners to share data with you? Do you use an outside resource like a telesales company to kind of do stuff? And I think it'll be interesting, Scott. I think you try to do both, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so we've done good old-fashioned what we call Google stalking to develop our, in a lot of cases our data is not wonderful, but we have an address, and it won't tell you it's a General Motors plant where I worked at and bought pumps in 1996, but it'll give you the address in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And so we're able to then utilize a couple of outside resources and our own team to improve that data to then give access, whether we call upon it or give access to an ASP. We're able to enrich that data from a the topic of installed base is nothing I could talk about, not even the distributor principal owner's wife or children gets a person more activated than discussing installed base. And so it's what we found, and what I found is you have to have just that open and honest dialogue about and have trust and faith and a shared goal of success for Peerless and our distributor to grow Peerless sales. So in some cases we found in organizations and got active ongoing joke back and forth about every 6 months with one of our reps that says, whatever you do not call my customer or I'm coming after you. And then we've got on the other end of the list, we've got customers that through hard work, and it's just hard work and honest communication, we've been able to drive understanding that we are not in a position to act upon all that data. The hardest thing for us to do is to create a new customer. We don't want to create customers. We just want to come alongside you to sell more aftermarket services. So, and that's a lot of, now it's Zoom or Microsoft Teams discussions. It obviously in 2017 through 19 and 2020, it was a lot of travel and a lot of handshakes and meals and just making people comfortable with what we're doing. So, the proof is in the results, and what we say is our word. It has to be the same as what our actions are. So I don't know if that helps or not.
Yeah, no, I think there's something you said which is interesting, and I'll use that as a way to wrap up this discussion. I think there's no substitute for hard work. There's no substitute for just kind of going at these things one by one, right? I mean, it's like if you don't start today, you're never going to get going. So you have to find a way to get going with your customer. You have to follow your partner. find ways to create incentives and get going from there. So Scott, thank you again for that. That is very, very helpful as always. When you think of the thread of the discussions from Dave Cody to Adrian to Hans to you,